What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of 31 Views. I'm your host, the Variety Vendor, and I'm here to review a very, very underrated movie in Brothers Grimm, or The Brothers Grimm. And this came out in 2005. I believe it came out in August 26th, 2005. And it was actually a box office bomb. It didn't make back enough to warrant a sequel, which I feel like that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make this into a franchise, but of course it didn't make enough money. So there was, and plus, a lot of the critics really panned it, especially Roger Ebert, and a lot of them just said that this had no substance, and this movie was basically just all about the special effects, and was trying to be a quirky horror movie. It was just way too stylized. But I feel like they're really missing the point, because okay, so this movie stars Matt Damon and Heath Ledger. They play as brothers, Will and Jake Grimm. Okay, the movie starts off with Heath Ledger's character being like this skeptical. Not the skeptical. Matt Damon's character plays the skeptical, more logical, one of the brothers, while Heath Ledger's character plays Jake, who's more into fantasy, and yes, he is very smart, but he does believe in magic. He does believe in the out of the ordinary things, and they start off, and I love how this movie the way it started off was kind of jarring, but then it just skips to them being older, and them conning a village, and them thinking that that their village is pretty much filled with ghosts and witches and stuff like that, and it's all a scam until later on in a different village. And you got to remember, this was during like when the French were ruling a lot of the European countries, and basically they go to a different village. Well, actually, they get caught, and because apparently there's another village that's been, somebody's doing the same thing, or so they think, and they think it's their doing. So what they do is, it's like, okay, if it's not you, then we want you to find the perpetrators, or else it's off with your heads. And I like how simple that is, because the movie's not really about the storyline, even though the storyline is strong, and I do think that it does have a lot of twists and turns. But at the same time, the movie is basically, it's more about an homage to the older horror movies, and even to a lot of the horror staples, like when you see Cabin in the Woods, and you're like, hey, that's really quirky, that's smart, it's a riff on old horror movies. Well, this is the same thing, but it's so filled with its story that you don't really get the point. It's kind of like Sleepy Hollow from '99, the Tim Burton movie. That was actually, it was a huge it was a tribute to Hammer horror films. This, I feel, is more geared towards the movies from the '40s, And you will see a lot of snippets from movies from back then, even through the characters and the over the topness. There's a lot of that's that you feel is very influenced by universal horror movies. So and movies from like the RKO pictures. There's so much that I feel like is influenced by it. And this movie is directed by one of my favorite directors, who directed 12 Monkeys. I love 12 Monkeys, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This guy, he knows how to direct movies that are rich in black comedy. Not the kind of comedy that it's like, I think he knows how to get the humor out of the he knows how to get the humor out of the more darker elements of cinema. And it's very commendable, because it takes a certain talent to do so, because there are certain movies, even Tim Burton, I feel like, especially nowadays, he's lost his footing when it comes to comedy. He used to be like right on the money when it comes to that, but recently his recent movies kind of dwindled away from dark comedy, and just to the point it's now goofy. But Terry Gilliam, he absolutely hit that, hit that right on the money. So I really, really recommend this movie for you to check out. It's absolutely wonderful. You got stand-up performances from Matt Damon and Heath Ledger. Both men get lost in these English characters, and you don't get the there are no botches in their accents, not to the point like it's very noticeable, and you're like, oh, it's he's playing a character. No, it feels like he's lost into the character, and it's very commendable to both guys. Ledger, God rest his soul, and Matt Damon, both are absolute chameleons. And also Lena Headey, who I absolutely adore, from the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and she was in Dread. I absolutely adore her. She's such a great actress. So that's pretty much it. As for my rating, I will give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. I do think it's a strong movie, and I would recommend it to watch it, even even if it wasn't Halloween. I think it's the kind of movie that that can be watched at any time. It's not the kind of movie that's going to be like, you need to be in a certain mood. I think it's the kind of movie that you could order out and watch it, with a friend of yours, or a special someone, or even by yourself. It's that enjoyable. So yeah, with that being said, rate, comment, favorite, please subscribe, and check out my next video where I talk about something else.